Hey everyone, my name is Hunter Page. I'm going to be showing you how to process a Milky Way image. With this particular image that you see now, this will be the final result of the tutorial. One thing you can take note with this image here is there isn't a green cast on the image. Everything looks very neutral as far as colors and color cast goes. Another thing to take note of is this foreground you see, Temple of the Moon in the background. This is all lit up enough to where you can actually see detail in. To achieve this, you need to blend two images together. And I know that sounds intimidating for some, but trust me, it is extremely simple. Extremely simple. And during this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to do that. So the two images that we're going to be using are these two images here. So you can see this is very green throughout this whole image. Very green cast. Looking down here, you can especially see how green it is. And then you can see the stars moving up in here. So this was about a 3-minute exposure. And the reason I did a 3-minute exposure was specifically to get the detail in this foreground area. Now, this image is specifically for the night sky. You know, the stars are sharp, the foreground is silhouetted. So this was about a 15 to a 20-second exposure, specifically for the night sky for the Milky Way. And we're going to be blending these two images together to create the final result image, this here. So what we're going to do is the two files you have, you're going to just select those both and double click. And this is going to bring you up into Camera Raw. So now we have both of these images up into Camera Raw. What we're going to start out with is selecting both of these images. So click this one first, which is going to be our foreground image, and then Command click to select both images. And we're going to come over here to our temperature and tint slider to begin with. Now, the main thing I'm seeing is, again, the foreground and sky are very green. They don't have that blue color of like the natural sky. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the magenta, we're going to pull toward magenta to give a more neutral color for the foreground, and that is also going to give us a more blue sky here. So if you grab this, you can slowly start pulling it to the right. And I'm watching this foreground area more than anywhere because this is where you can really see the greens. So again, I'm going to keep pulling it over to the right. And we're getting to a good spot here. And I think about 18 looks good. So now you can see the sky has really come out. Doesn't look so green anymore. This foreground looks nice and neutral, like as if it would look if you were there in person. Another overall adjustment that we'll do on both of these images is we'll come down to detail. We have here sharpening. We're going to take that sharpening to 0. We'll do no sharpening at this point in the process. But what we do, or what we will want to do, is the noise reduction. So we have the luminance here and the color here. So on both of these, with both of these images selected, I'm going to bump both of these up to about 30. And most of this noise is going to show up in this foreground area. So if I just click this one image, deselect this image here, just focus on this one here, I zoomed into this foreground, and I turned off the adjustments we just made, turn them back on, you can see the amount of noise that has been taken out. So that's perfect. That's where we want it. When we select this image here, zoom up into this night sky, do the same thing. Takes away a lot of that noise. So that is exactly what we want. Select both of these images again. And we'll come down to optics. So profile corrections. When you click this, really the main thing it's going to do for us is it's going to get rid of this natural vignette that we have, where it is darker in the corners and it begins to come down into the center of the frame. So we want to get rid of that. So by clicking that, you begin to see these corners look nice and bright. Allows you to view the sky at full capacity. So we're going to come back up to our main basic slider or adjustments up here, and let's just select this image here, the sky image. The whole thing with night photography and capturing the Milky Way is to bring out the stars that are there. So for me, I like to grab the white slider here, which is going to select the brighter parts of the frame, which is the stars. And I'm going to boost up this whites a bit. Begin to see the whole image starts to brighten up quite a bit. And I'll take it about, leave it here at 37. Highlights, you take it to the left, it darkens it, take it to the right, it brightens it. So what we want to do is maybe just take it to the right just a little bit, not too much. And our exposure, I will maybe bump that up just a hair as well. Maybe just about 20. Down here we have texture and clarity. So I'm going to zoom up to these stars real fast and show you this. So texture, when you add texture, it's putting definition on these stars. It's essentially sharpening it. So I like to add just a little bit of this. If you do too much, it does not look very natural. So, maybe 10 here. Same thing with clarity. If you add too much clarity, it begins to look very grungy and does not look good at all. In fact, I will show you what this looks like. If you bump up clarity all the way, that's what it looks like. Very unnatural, does not look good. So just take this up. Let's just go to 10 as well. So that's everything I'm going to be doing for the sky portion right now. Now, just clicking over to the foreground image, what I'm going to do is grab our shadow slider. Because Temple of the Moon is so dark, I want to bring out that detail there. So I'll bring up the shadows just a little bit. Maybe grab our exposure, brighten that up a little bit. And I'm just making it so I can see these details in here, just to that point. Texture clarity, dehaze, none of that. I'm not going to be using any of that right now. So now that we have made all of these adjustments, so this is when we pulled up the image, this is what it looked like. That's what it looks like now. When we select the foreground image, this is before and after. So again, command click, select both of these images, and we're going to open them up into Photoshop. Now, your current setting here in Camera Raw, you may just see open right here. But what you want to do is click this drop down menu and open as object. Here we are in Photoshop. You can see up in this left hand corner we have both of our images here. So we have this one, which is our foreground image, and this image is for our sky. So you can see down here, same thing, this is your image. But what we need to do is add the other image right below this. So how we're going to do that is if you just click with both fingers, either a mouse or a touchpad, it'll bring up a few options here. We're going to go to duplicate layer. This is going to bring up another option here. You're going to click document and just up to the top file. Click OK. Now when you click over to this image, you can now see bottom right, you can see both of our images here. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to exit out of this one, don't save. So now we have both of these images. From this point, there's a couple things we can do to then blend these images together. My preferred method, which is just super simple, is if you come up here and select sky. This will generally do a great job at selecting the sky. So now you can see the marching ants all along the edge of the foreground. You know, I may zoom in a bit and just make sure everything looks good. And everything looks just fine. So from this point, I'm going to save this selection right here. So in this channels, if you just come down to this icon here, just click it. Alpha 1 channel, it has just saved. The white is the sky, which you have selected. The black is the foreground, which you have not selected. Come back up, just click RGB panel here. What we're going to do now is come up to select and inverse. So now this is going to select the foreground and not select the sky. We're going to do the same thing. Click here to save it in our channels. So we have one image that is specifically for the foreground, one image specifically for the sky. So we're going to come here, just command click the Alpha 1 channel for the sky. And we actually need to swap these images here. So if you swap this image, just put the 6804 image on top, the sky image, and you can see the sky is selected in this image. The marching ants are in the sky. You come down to this icon here, the same one as up here, just not in our channels, we're in our layers. Just click that and boom. It left us the sky, which we wanted, but then it blended in our foreground. So if you look, option, click this eye icon, you can see the changes or the difference. So this is our foreground image. Click it again. This is our foreground image, but with our sky image on top of it. Now that we have successfully blended these two images together, we are now going to make localized adjustments to either the sky or the foreground. And earlier how we saved both of these adjustments here, or both of these selections, we're going to put those to use. So if you come down to Alpha 2, command click it. This is selecting our foreground. everything but the sky. The main thing I'm seeing here still is that it does look very green, and that's something I want to adjust. I want that to look a lot more neutral, maybe even add some blue or cyan to it to give more of that nighttime feel. So now that this foreground is selected, I'm going to come up into our adjustments panel and select our color balance. So now that we select this, you can come down here into our layers and you can see the white is selected, which is our foreground. The black, which is the sky, is not selected. So when you make adjustments on here, it's only affecting the foreground. So again, because this image is green, we're going to grab our magenta and green slider and go toward magenta. So we won't go too much, maybe 7 here. And I'm going to play with these other channels. I'm going to take that yellow and push it more toward blue. Don't want to use too much. And I'm just keeping an eye down here mainly, just to make sure the colors look good, look natural. And I saw quite a bit of red in there, so we're going to add some cyan and get rid of that red. And adding the cyan will really kind of mimic the cyan blues that are up here and push them down into the foreground to make the image blend more naturally. So you can click this eye icon to see without it, with it, without it, and with it. And that's looking pretty dang good to me. So we'll let that be. Something else I want to do here is this foreground looks a little bright. My eye keeps being drawn down to this section of the scene. So what I'm going to do is darken this a little bit. So if you come up into our adjustments here, you can select the exposure, which is this right here. You'll just click that. Exposure here. We're going to take this down to the left. And just watching this foreground area and making sure that it's not too dark, not too bright. And I think I'm going to keep it right around 64 right now. Now we have this adjustment made, but this is for the whole image now. You can see the sky got dark, the foreground got dark. Our mask is pure white, so it's affecting the whole image here. What we want to do is make it select just this general area. And there's a couple things that need to be done in order to do that. My preferred method is to make this white mask black and then paint in where I want this exposure adjustment to be. So the way to do that is if you click the letter X, brings up this black box, and then you press Option and Delete. This will fill this mask, this white mask, with a black mask. So now when you toggle this on and off, there is no adjustment at all. And that is because we have painted this black, and now we need to paint in white where we want this adjustment to be. So if you click the B, the letter B, get your opacity up to 100, flow, it really doesn't matter too much for this, but 40 will do the job. And then you just paint in where you want this to go. And you can begin to see this adjustment being made. So I'll just paint it in. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. And then I'll toggle this on and off to see the adjustment we just made. It looks pretty good. And I'm going to double click onto this because I think we can make it a little bit darker. You double click this exposure icon here and come back up. Let's take this down to maybe like 80-ish. And yeah, that looks a lot better. Awesome, looks good. Now, when I'm looking at this, I still see an overall green tint. Even in the sky, you can see greens here, greens here. The sky isn't as blue as it should be. The foreground still looks a little green. So we're going to make a global adjustment using the color balance right here. And again, focusing on the magenta and greens, we're going to go down to magenta. So about 6 looks pretty good. Maybe add some blues. And let's add some cyan as well. And that looks pretty good to me. Now, still with the sky, I'm seeing quite a bit of greens in here. And again, I want it a little bit more blue. So with the adjustment that we made, this alpha 2, if you just press, or sorry, alpha 1, if you just press command click, the alpha 1 just selects the sky. We'll go back up to the color balance, select that, and we're going to take this toward magenta. And this is going to give us a bluer sky because it's taking away that green. You can begin to see that blue really come out. So I'm going to take this up to about 17. I'll play around with the blue slider, maybe take a little bit of yellow out, push toward blue, and even the cyan as well. Add a little bit of cyan to it. And I will toggle this on and off to see the adjustment. So yeah, you went from a green to more of like a blue. At this point, there are only a couple more adjustments to be made. I'm looking at this foreground area, mountains included. Everything does look maybe a little bit too cool. So coming back down to our adjustment we made just a little bit ago, if you can click this icon here, it'll bring up our last adjustment on this. And I'm actually going to tone this down a little bit. So take the 17, maybe closer to 10. Maybe leave our magenta there, but push this back toward the yellow a little bit. And that looks a little bit more natural to me. Something that I would also like to do here is add some warmth back to this feature here, Temple of the Moon. The reason is because this looks very dull in the color and it has that blue tint to it, though the feature is very orange, very yellow, and I want to bring that back to life. So again, in our channels adjustment here, we're going to come down to alpha 2, command click. You can see that this is selecting just the foreground here. We're going to come up, color balance, and we're going to, let's zoom in a little bit just onto this feature here, and we're going to add back that warmth. So we're going to add a little bit of red, just really looking at this feature here. Maybe a little bit of magenta and some yellow. Let's give that natural color back into this feature here. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So zoom back out. Now, because we made this adjustment to select the whole foreground, what we need to do is grab our paintbrush. The paintbrush is here, or press the letter B, and we're going to get our black paintbrush. So we only really want it to affect this feature here, but now it's affecting the whole ground. So we're going to paint this foreground and deselect what we just did, specifically for the foreground. Okay, so we got those blues, natural colors back into the foreground there. And now we have nice colors up in here and in these distant cliffs. So if you toggle this on and off and on, you can begin to see nice colors coming back into these features here. Yep, looks a lot better there. So maybe one more adjustment to the sky here. Again, still seeing some greens over here. So I just want to toggle this magenta and see if it will help the sky go more blue, and it will. So again, in our channels, we're going to want to select the sky, alpha 1, command click. This is now selecting the sky. Go to our color balance and push toward magenta. And maybe just a little bit, maybe to 5. And just seeing what these will do. I think that is good as is. So this is looking pretty good to me. After you have sharpened your image, you can zoom up, really take a look at this image, enjoy it. And after you've done it, you are complete. The image is done. It is ready for website display, for printing, or whatever it is that you would like to do with the image. I would suggest saving 2 files, one as a PSD and one as a JPEG. And thank you for watching this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I appreciate your business.